Hi, welcome. We have a distinguished panel of artists with us today to talk about Mamma Mia. And maybe what I'll do is let you introduce yourselves so you can say what you think is most important about yourself.
Oh, okay.
Joe, you're on the end. You get to go first.
I'm Joe Koala, and I am the choreographer for Mamma Mia. I'm originally from Madison, Wisconsin, and I now live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is a great theater city where I met John. We worked together at the Guthrie. And anyway, I'm choreographing Mamma Mia. I also have my own percussive dance company in Minneapolis called the Flying Foot Forum. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary this summer and doing a program at Park Square called French Twist, which is a French cabaret, and it's a lot of fun. And I guess that's about it.
Hi, I'm Sarah Daniels. I play Sophie in Mamma Mia. I live in New York City, but I was born and raised in Florida. I grew up in Celebration, the town that Disney built, and I was a Disney princess for 12 years. It's a long time. Outside of acting, I'm a professional gamer. I stream 7 days a week on a platform called Twitch that is owned by Amazon. It's like the #2 most ranked viewed website in the world. So other than that,
I think that's enough.
that's basically it.
That's amazing.
I have nothing else going on.
You are amazing.
No, you.
Sarah always says, oh, I'm so mediocre at everything, and of course it's just not true at all. My name is Peter Simon Hilton. I'm playing Harry in Mamma Mia. As you can tell from my accent, I'm English, but I live in New York and have done since the 90s. I was actually born in Glasgow, but I've lost my accent since then. And then moved to London, and I went to university there and studied classics, Latin, Greek, before entering into first musical theatre and then subsequently joining a Shakespeare company, which was a transatlantic company, and so ending up here in the States. What I'm also interested outside of theatre as well. I'm a drama consultant for diversity, international diversity programs for large corporations and banks around the world. And in fact, just before this job, I came back from Japan, where I was working with Nissan. We sort of, what we do is we make training programs to raise people's awareness on issues of diversity. And I have to say that it's often quite akin to the work that we do in theatre, raising people's awareness about conversations that they don't necessarily want to have themselves. And I don't know whether Mamma Mia necessarily fits into that, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, my name is Erin Mosier, and I play Donna in Mamma Mia. And I live in New York City. I'm actually originally from Napa, California, the wine country. Yes, I know. Are you from Napa? Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, it's much more fun, I should say, to go back and visit now that I'm actually legal and I can actually enjoy a glass of wine. But my family still lives there and I visit quite often. I live in New York City, and in addition to my acting, I also am just finishing up my master's degree in speech pathology. And I actually am finishing up my final semester while I am doing this show. So I actually just took a big test on Monday, which actually said that I could graduate and everything's moving forward, and I passed. So yeah. So thank you. So I consider myself very, very fortunate to be here, to be working with these amazing artists and amazing director. We're having a wonderful time. We laugh a lot. We cry a lot. Just because, I think this show, as much as it's a lot of fun, it also really touches your heart. And there's some really, really beautiful scenes in there that I think are very human and are very things that people can relate to. So it's already been a really wonderful journey so far. And we haven't even opened yet.
No, we open tomorrow. We've had 2 previews. We had a nonprofit night, and then last night we had our first public preview, and audiences really seem to be enjoying it, which is exciting. And it's been a whirlwind. This is a big show. And fortunately, we have a fantastic group of artists working on the show. because we don't have much time to get it together, and they've worked so hard, and I think you'll really enjoy it. I would say, to walk us into this a little bit, I think it's important to remember, as always, theater is entertainment. And for where I live, theater is the most exciting kind of entertainment. I love stories, I love language, I love music. It incorporates all of those things. And unlike film or television, where things are processed and edited and live apart from the moment, theater lives in the exact moment. So therefore, it's very visceral, it's very dangerous, it's tremendously exciting, because you are part of making the event happen. The audience becomes an integral part of that exact moment. So for me, theater is the best kind of entertainment. And entertainment doesn't necessarily mean it has to be empty. I think sometimes entertainment is most effective when it can inspire, it can challenge, it can provoke, it can do all sorts of things. And I think that's where the nonprofit theater steps in. I think the commercial theater, by its very nature, really focuses more on, entertainment for entertainment's sake, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think the nonprofit theater steps in and does something more with your entertainment dollar. It actually challenges an audience, it inspires them, it asks them to actually give something of themselves in a way that just entertainment doesn't, just fun. That being said, every once in a while it's really important just to have a good time. And as I was saying just a few short weeks ago, I was thinking about, I love history, I was thinking about the American Depression. Probably because the first play of next season is Glass Menagerie, and I'm going to be directing that, and Williams is one of my favorite playwrights. And I was thinking about the Great Depression and how it was a time of great upheaval, not only in this country, but the world, in terms of the economy. Millions upon millions of people unemployed, tremendous political unrest. It was such a time of turmoil. And that was the very time that the film industry really found its legs. Technology and timing all came together. And what did people do? They went into dark theaters and they watched stories, beautiful men and women with beautiful voices telling wonderful stories, and it lifted them from the grueling reality of their world. And there was something that was actually very important about that. And I'm not saying that we are anywhere near what the Great Depression was, but I also feel like when I pick up the paper or watch the news, I think we need a little vacation from just, it seems like there is some sort of Black Depression. It seems that way to me anyway right now. And I think we need a little respite from that. And I think that's what Mamma Mia is going to do. And the more exciting thing is that Mamma Mia does it live, and these fantastic actors are sharing of themselves in that moment for you to lift your spirits. And what that does is it creates a sense of community, because it reminds us of all the things we have in common. And forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but not too long ago, there's a study done in London where scientists discovered that an audience seeing a production, their heartbeats start synchronizing. That, interestingly enough, what will happen is over the course of a production, and this happens with couples or people who are working together, their heartbeats synchronize. And what they discovered in seeing a show is that they put pacemakers or whatever they are on, I'm not a scientist, they put monitors on various patrons, and they tested their heartbeats, and they discovered that over the course of the play, people from various walks of life, that their heartbeats synchronized. And then even more interesting, when people went into the lobby, this is London, so I'll say it's the interval. Americans call it the intermission. But when the people went in the lobby and you were socializing with people that you went to the theater with, your heartbeats would remain in sync. But people who were not part of the same group, they would be disparate again. So what that says to me is that people from different walks of life, even though you may not even know each other, there's something inherent in the act of seeing a live theater production together that creates community. And I love that story because I've been saying for years, live theater creates community, and now I have scientific evidence to back it up. Anyway, so enough about all of that. I just wanted to let you know where we are in terms of our mindset. Mamma Mia is a great ride. It's so much fun. The story behind it is it's based on the work of ABBA. For those of us who came of age in the 70s, we have fond memories of ABBA. ABBA was, they were popular from like 72 to 82. And this musical came about because Benny and Bjorn, who were two of the members of ABBA, towards the end of their time together, they started working on a musical called Chess. And one of the producers of Chess was a producer by the name of Judy Kramer. And Judy Kramer said to Benny and Bjorn, she said, I think your songs from ABBA would make a great musical. And they said, no. And they said no for well over 10 years. They said no, 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 no. And eventually what happened, Judy Kramer found a book writer, and she also found a director, a book writer by the name of Katherine Johnson, and a director by the name of Philida Lloyd. I just want to point out all these are women. And she had them work on it, and they created this story around the songs, and Benny and Bjorn were convinced that it would work. It opened on the West End, huge hit in the West End. And I think the North American premiere was in Toronto. Shortly thereafter, it moved to New York, where it was a hit. It's an international sensation, I think seen by 60 million people in 22 different languages. It is the musical that has been produced more frequently, quicker than any other musical in the history of record keeping in terms of musicals. So it's touching a chord. So my questions for the cast. One of the reasons I asked these three actors is because they are so articulate and personable and amazing human beings. But also one of the reasons all three of you have done this play before. And I thought it would be really interesting to hear what that's like, because I think for me, I've never directed a play twice. And I've never really wanted to, because I feel like I throw everything I have, heart and soul, they're sort of my children. I throw everything I have, and there's too many pieces I want to do. And I also become tremendously attached to an actor's performance in a piece. So I think I'm never going to be open to another actor's interpretation because I fell in love with somebody else's version. So, and maybe somewhere down the road that'll change. But I've never done, and what is it like working on a piece that you've done before with a different director and different actors? You have the same music, how does that work?
I'll let you go first. Okay.
So I thought that coming into this knowing the music and the words so well would be easier, but I don't know, I'm sure you're the same way. Every time I go into a new show, I already know the words and I know the music, so it's almost the same. When you go into a rehearsal process, normally I'm off book and I know the music. So coming into this, it was like I knew the words, I knew the music, but it's an entirely different show. Nothing's the same. I'm saying the same words, I'm singing the same music, but nothing else is the same. So it can actually be harder in a sense because there's so many interpretations of shows. And I mean, Mamma Mia, it's not like it's going to be a hugely different interpretation, but there are things that are different. And we were talking, and you said that like some productions are like larger than life, huge, overacting, just like colors and sparkles and all this stuff. And then some are more like dimmed down, So every director, every choreographer, every music director has different opinions. So it's actually kind of tough to adjust from what you already know, especially coming from just doing it. Like I just did the show. So I don't know, it's interesting. I'm having a lot of fun with this one. So that's all I'll say.
Oh,
No. Please.
Oh, I was just going to tag on to what you were going to say too, because you brought up a thought for me. I think as an actor, and as I've been in the business longer and longer, and as I get a little older, I find it's easier for me to really connect with another really good actor. And Sarah and I, we play mother and daughter in the show, and we instantly had an amazing bond. And we have this scene where she's getting married, not to give too much of the show away, but she's just so emotionally present that all I have to do is just look at her and I like fall into that moment. I don't have to work. Like, I just feel like I'm just there. And that, to me, as an actor, is where we always strive to be. I spent so much of my college and high school years trying to act, trying to be in the moment, try. And it's the complete opposite, the other flip side of the coin, where I can look at Sarah and also Harry, and Peter, he plays Harry. And it's just, they're so present. And that is such a gift as an actor that you can give to your fellow actor, is to just be there, be present, to really listen to what they're saying, and then you can just play. It's a really beautiful moment. But going on to my experience, I did Mamma Mia in Las Vegas at the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino many years ago, like 10 years ago. However, I was in the ensemble and I understudied both Donna and Tanya. I never got a chance to go on for the leads, and I didn't get a chance. I mean, I knew that because I had to study that information, but I was so much more concerned with the track that I was doing in the ensemble. So coming at it from this was really exciting for me because I could just focus all my energy in on Donna. So it was, for me, kind of new and refreshing, and I didn't feel like I was dragging remnants of the past that I had to like shackle off, get rid of. But so I actually, even though I've done it in the past and I've sang a lot of these songs in concert versions, I feel very fresh and alive in the show. How do you feel?
Well, I've done quite a few shows, more than once. I've done My Fair Lady 4 times. I've done Julius Caesar 3 times. I've done Comedy of Errors and Merry Wives of Windsor 3 times each as well. So I've had quite a lot of experience of iterations of the same show and the same script. But I have to say, I love coming back to, not to be contrary to you, John, but I love coming back to a show that I've done before because, of course, just like you expressed, every time you're in front of an audience, as opposed to something that's recorded, it's brand new for yourself and for them. And when you come to a new cast, even though it's the same songs, essentially, and the same book, it still feels incredibly fresh and incredibly exciting when you look into somebody's eyes that are new and they embodying a character in a new way. Then of course it reflects upon your own performance and your own discoveries, which become new and exciting and develop throughout the run as well. And so I've always immensely enjoyed the fact that you don't have to go through the grunt work of just learning the lines and all that stuff that one has to do. Every job has something that you don't like doing, and for us it's just all the learning, and we have to do a lot of learning. But so, the fact that you don't have to do that, but just go straight into the rehearsal and are just open and ready to receive and then to give back is incredibly exciting. So I'm enjoying this iteration enormously because it's a very talented cast. And even though John expressed that we didn't have very much time to rehearse, it's been no more or less time than the last 2 times that I did it. And, you all just come together. And when people ask me, how long does it take to rehearse a play, it takes as long as it takes, or as long as you're given. And just like with any other job, you have to achieve it, within the time frame that's given. And
but it always comes together.
It always comes together. Isn't there that?
You can do it in 2 days, but it'll come together.
I know. In Shakespeare in Love,
Not true.
in Shakespeare in Love, isn't there one of the characters says, it's sort of, I don't know. It's just like it always comes together. I have no idea why.
I wouldn't want a 2-day rehearsal period.
I'm exaggerating.
Well, no, but I mean, there are theatres in this country that will do a full-blown musical in 7 days.
Yeah.
And then perform it in front of 2,000 people. So, You know, I mean, you do what you do, and you know, the more professional you are. And one of the interesting things about our profession is that one of our commodities is emotion, and most other professions sort of tend to sideline that, but we have to put it up front and center. And that includes not just the emotional attachment that we have to the piece and therefore what we're giving you, but also to each other as well. And we have to quickly find bonds and quickly find ways to support each other so that, you know, we become one. So then we can play with you and you can be reciprocal in that and play with us as well. And then we all have this amazing time. So yes, it's hard work, but it's joyful work too.
Yes. Yes, in fact, when I'm auditioning and casting a play, one of the things I look at is, have they done the role before? And I have to say, much of the time, if there are two actors who I like equally well, I will probably go with the actor who hasn't done it before. Because one of the big drags when you're trying to find a show is to have an actor saying, oh, well, when we did it this way, you know, I did this. And that's awful, because then immediately it shuts down innovation, it shuts down discovery and exploration. Not always. It depends on the actor. But I've been in those experiences where you can't, you know, somebody's recreating a performance that they created somewhere else in another production with different actors and a different director, and it's very hard. Now, that doesn't mean I won't cast actors who have done it before. You just need pliable, imaginative, giving actors who have done it before. And then it's actually kind of great, because they come at it with strength and confidence. But Joe and I have never done this before. So Joe and I have worked together, and Joe is not only a wonderful choreographer, but he's director as well, and has directed many productions at the Guthrie. Since you're a newbie at this too, would tell me a little bit about how you went about crafting the dances for the show.
So, first of all, I'm a big fan of ABBA. I'll say that now. At one point, I would be embarrassed to say that. But
It's
I grew
cool
up
now. It's cool.
What's that?
It's cool now.
It's cool now, so I can say that. You know, I was the child of the disco era. That was my youth. So my sister and I used to win disco contests. So we did a lot of that. And ABBA was part of that. But there were so many disco songs. So I knew them and I loved them. But you know, it was just part of that whole era. Then I saw a movie called Muriel's Wedding. I don't know if any of you saw it, with Toni Collette. It was kind of her breakout role. It was an Australian film. And ABBA was the soundtrack. And I came out of the theater in horror saying, I think I love ABBA. And I got the ABBA's greatest hits, and I became this big fan of ABBA. But still, I hadn't seen Mamma Mia, and when it would come through town, I'd go, should I spend the money? No. But then John finally asked me to do it, and as the national tour was winding down, and it had just come through Minneapolis, so I went on the national tour website, found out that it was playing in Appleton, Wisconsin, which is only about 4 hours from Minneapolis, and got over there to see it, and loved it, and it was just great. So it was really fun to be asked to do this. But you know, we have a smaller cast, and I just, you know, you always want to put your own stamp on something. So what I decided I wanted to do was to make it the original production had a lot of people just standing in place and doing the same steps, and I wanted to do a lot more patterns and people moving around and doing a lot of different things in the show. So the first thing I did was I got the London CD, because they don't have a Broadway CD, listened to the music, got even more familiar with it, and of course that was a pleasure. I even am listening to ABBA in my car now, which is very funny. And then I got the score, and you start going through the score, and you make sure that the parts that they don't have on the CD, that you know what they are, you get somebody to record them for you, and then just start imaging what you want to do with these numbers, and you know, with each number, and they all take a long time. I spent about, you know, John asked me last year, so I over time I kind of figure out which projects are on the front burner and which are on the back burner, and when I have a little time, I'll go to the one that's 3 months down the line, and I would do that all year. And then probably about 2 weeks ago, we did auditions in New York in the fall and started to think about it a little more. But then about 2 weeks ago, I got really serious and started to, you know, to say, tomorrow I'll handle these 2 numbers, and I'd sit in the studio and play them over and over and improvise and dance around like a fool. And then if something was really, if I knew I was going to forget it, I'd immediately film it, so I had that. Sometimes I use stick figures in the score, or words that will help me remember what it is. I'll draw patterns on the page next to the part of the score that I'm working on, and just started to put it all together and try to feel the arc of the choreographic part of the show. And there's a lot of storytelling that I think can get lost in this show if you don't make sure that the dances. There's this whole scene at the end of the first act where Sophie is having all these really important conversations with her. Well, I shouldn't give away the story, with some very important people in her life, and there's this gigantic disco dance happening, and you have to make sure that the audience knows where to look and knows what she's thinking and what all the other people, the other characters, because everybody in the show is in that scene dancing around. So you have to really be careful as a choreographer to make sure that people know where to look and what you want them to see and understand in the storytelling. So that's another layer that John and I talk about a lot. And so there's a lot to choreographing a musical. You can't just make up dances and let them fly on their own. They have to put the story forward.
I think one of the joys for me with this production, Joe has directed Christmas Carol at Guthrie how many times? 5 times. And it's the annual production at the Guthrie, and mostly actors are cast in that production because they're actors, and then they also have to sing and dance. And I think with that production, you have to make do with their limited abilities, to put it kindly, in terms of their dance abilities.
But they do great.
They do great. Yeah. And one of the things that's great about Joe is he makes people look good, no matter what level they are in terms of coordination. But with this particular production, we were able to cast some really, really wonderful dancers. And it's been really fun for me to watch Joe imagine without any restraint in terms of, they're not quite capable of that. He can ask them to do insane things, and they do. And they smile when they do it, which is really amazing. So working on a show is all about collaboration. And I think one of the interesting things is, where is the intersection between an actor's instinct, the choreographer's steps, the director's vision? Do any of the actors want to talk about that? Most or all productions are about collaboration. When you get to a musical, it's even more so. Because you have a choreographer, you have a musical director, you have a conductor, you have all these people. And how do, as an actor with an image of, you are the primary interpreter, really. Once the show opens, the director is sort of forgotten about, really. It's the actor in the audience. So do any of the actors want to talk a little bit about how they work, what their responsibility is in terms of the choreographer's move, the director's vision, the costume designer's sketches?
Well, I think for me, I pride myself, and I've also just learned that this is my process. I'm a very emotionally driven actor. Some people really look at the script and dissect what they're saying, and for me, it's all about how things feel and how things feel in my body. I try to always go into rehearsal being very open to what the director and choreographer wants. I'll always try first what they suggest, always. And and I usually really try to make it work. And if I try, or if I just don't feel it, I'll say something. And what's been great in the process, I would say for the most part, I think I've been able to make 90% work. And there's other times where I'm like, yeah, I'm just not feeling this. Or what do you think about this? And both John and Joe have always been, yeah, that's great. And I feel like I'm really on the same page with you about emotional things, about lyrics and things like that, where I said, this line here makes a little bit more sense on this cross. What do you think? He's like, that's brilliant. That's great. Go for it. And as an actor, I really, really enjoy that kind of relationship, because as an actor, you don't always get that. Sometimes you get some directors that said, nope, I want you to stand on this line because that's where the light is. You're going to deliver it. I want your face to look like this. So then my challenge then is, I'll take it, great. But then my challenge, and I really try to rise to this challenge, and I love this challenge, is how do I make that work? How can I make that organic and work for me? Now, I'm not going to lie, there are moments where I'm like, okay, this feels mechanical. I'm just going to have to go through it. But I just try to get right back onto my emotional center as soon as I can, because I know and I trust that that's my process. And if I don't feel emotionally connected, I know I'm not doing my job to the best of its ability. So, but
Yeah, I absolutely feel that way. There are some directors who will be like, okay, I want you to cross on 6 on this line. And you're like, but why am I crossing a 6 on that line? It doesn't make any sense. Like, why would I move? But
just so you understand what 6 means, on our stage, so for our place point, there's 0, which is stage center, right? And then as you go stage right, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if you go stage left, it goes 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10. So when she's saying just cross to 6, what we use to say, like, you cross over to a part on stage that matches up with 6 on stage.
Yes. So it's like just like hitting your marks essentially. But there are some directors who will be like, well, I don't know, make it work. Like I had a cross one time that was just like cross on this line. It makes no sense. Walk around in a circle, come back this way, and motivating it every night was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm trying. And I had another actor be like, man, that cross you're doing is really like, I don't know how you're motivating it. It looks great. And I'm like, thank goodness, because I feel so funny crossing. But with this team, it's exactly the opposite. John will be like, can you turn away on this? And I'll be like, sure. And I'll try. And he'll be like, how does that feel? It feels great. Thank you for asking. Thank you for caring how we're feeling as we're crossing. This production I love because Mamma Mia, it's not Tennessee Williams. You know, it's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to have a good time. It's a big party. But I feel more like an actor in this production than I've felt in a long time because we have incredible actors. Mostly when you do Mamma Mia, it's like singers first and then like actor-dancers normally. Not as much with the dads and the women, but with the younger roles, it's often like you have to be a great singer and then like acting. But not in this production. Like there's so many amazing moments that I have with everyone. Like every single dad, every single woman, every single ensemble member, when I look at them in the face, they look at me back. And I think that's an incredible thing that you can assemble people that do that because you know, sometimes you go into processes and you're, you know, acting on stage with someone and you're looking them in the face and they're just not looking at you. You know what I mean? You know. So it's really interesting that this team has assembled those kind of actors that look at you and they are connected with you. Because that's the skill. That's acting. It's not, look at me, I'm good. It's, can I connect with people that I need to connect with on stage? So, something funny I have to say, by the way. So you were talking about not wanting to cast people that have done the show before, usually. I initially did not get an audition appointment for this show. I was given a no, and my agent pulled another person out of a slot and put me in the slot.
I didn't know that.
Fun fact. So when my agent called me to tell me I booked it, he was like, hey, remember when I had to pull another client out of an audition slot to like put you in? You booked the job, so good job. I had to give you that story.
I didn't know it.
I mean, the odd thing about being on stage in theatre is that it is an artificial environment. So however much one feels connected to one's own performance and to one's fellow scene partners, who, as Sarah says, you're only as good as your scene partner. You can't exist in your own bubble, or else you instantly fail. And you also can't, as a group, exist on stage in your own bubble. You have to interact with the audience and be very cognizant of them. And I always have this little sort of matrix that sits in the back of my mind that is almost scientific in the map of where I am, both physically and emotionally. And it's constantly moves and adjusts itself according to what I would say was the breath in the air, which is what the audience give back. And so when you feed forward and you get feedback from the audience, then all the time you're sort of just altering your performance, sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously. But I feel that always understanding that you are not performing for yourself on stage, or even for the play itself, or for the theatre itself. You're always performing for the people who are in the room at that moment. That is your primary goal. So if for some reason you might feel awkward walking from one place to 6, then if the audience don't feel that awkwardness, then you are succeeding. Because if they feel awkward, then obviously something is not succeeding. But it's not necessarily about how you emotionally feel yourself, whether it clicks for yourself, that it feels natural. Because what is natural? We're all standing on stage with, lights in front of us in sparkly costumes, doing dances and singing and trying to be, normal and authentic. So obviously it's not an actual real situation.
You just took my whole stage.
But isn't that the beauty, that we can all look at things from different filters and see things in a different way? But the experience is the same, and it is for the audience, and I'm a primary believer in that. So, if a director tells me to go and stand somewhere and I feel odd about it, I always think to myself, well, first of all, it's their job to oversee the whole thing. I can't see it from outside my own body. I may have, a lot of experience and be able to, mine that experience and say, well, I know what was success previously, but I don't know what a success it looks like right now in this moment. It's their job to know that, and it's their responsibility. And they are responsible to the audience. And if the audience are enjoying it, and my gosh, the last 2 nights, the audience are enjoying it enormously, then we are all doing our job.
One other little interesting thing about collaborating, especially on this show, I knew coming into it that it was going to be aerobically challenging, and that everybody, and we don't have a whole set of pit singers. We have a couple of pit singers in this production. Normally they have a whole set of pit singers who, can sing full voice without moving around. So I knew that I'd have to be open to changing. There's been a lot of times when I've had to check in with the Dynamos, the 3 lead women, and well, you're also, the 4th is her, but she's not part of the Dynamos. And I have to check in with them and make sure that they can do what we're doing. She has to jump around on a bed during Dancing Queen and then get off it and run around, put on boas and all sorts of crazy stuff. So I had to keep checking in with everybody to make sure that they could sing it. Not to mention, I won't say it at all, but there's lots of platform shoes. So I said, we'll do this, and if it isn't possible in platform shoes, we won't do that. So, yeah. So you have to be open, especially in a show like this, to people's needs aerobically and, and being able to just stand up at the end of a song.
So for me, I remember turning to Joe like a week into rehearsal, and I remember saying to you, I hate directing dance musicals. Because it feels like so much time is consumed by choreography. And so when I look back at musicals I've done, I tend to gravitate towards book musicals, 1776, musicals, She Loves Me, musicals that are really heavily into book. But I really wanted to do the show because I felt like I really wanted to have some fun, and I trust Joe so much. But it's challenging when you're talking about collaboration. I had to give up an enormous amount of rehearsal time. Some of our book scenes we did twice. And it's just simply because and it's okay because the cast is really strong, and it's not Chekhovian in its complexity. So I think we were okay, but it's sometimes I felt like I don't have the time, but it's necessary, and that's where trust really comes into play. And that's why really so often you see directors hiring the same choreographers or actors or colleagues. Matt Lefebvre, who has designed the clothes for this, amazing designer. He designed Hard as a Lonely Hunter as well as Gift of the Magi. He and I've worked on over 20 productions together. Because we really trust each other. We know how our aesthetics are similar, and we really understand how each other work. And so there's a shorthand that immediately develops. Very rarely does Matt come up with a costume sketch that I say, I really don't like that. I think with this show, the first design for the wedding dress was not girly enough. In my perception of the piece, Sophie's a bit of a bridezilla, right? And this wedding is, so I thought the dress had to reflect her absolute obsession with having the perfect wedding. So it had to be sort of, over the top. But very rarely do I ever say to Matt, I think we need to, and that's similarly, I think that's why directors hire, and one of the reasons why it was scary for me looking at the cast for the first day, I had never worked with, there were 22 actors. That's a lot of actors, and I don't think I've ever worked with any of you before. So Aaron, you worked with Zane before, right?
I did. So Zane, So Zane plays Sophie's love interest. He plays Sky, and my husband ran Flat Rock Playhouse for about 5 years, so we worked together there quite frequently. And it's interesting because a lot of times, by him being the artistic director, I know also that world and the other side, which has actually helped me grow quite a bit as an actor as well. I started working with a lot of the same actors, and Zane actually was an apprentice there. So that's how I know Zane. And I saw him at the audition. I'm like, hey, I saw you like 5 years ago. He's like, Zane, remember Flat Rock? I'm like, yeah, I remember. I just couldn't remember what season it was and everything. But yeah, so we worked together there. So it's interesting. And I do really enjoy working with the same actors again when you get that opportunity. It's not always you get that opportunity, but
and what
it's
did
nice.
you do together?
We did Miss Saigon. We did Miss Saigon, yeah.
And I don't know this. Peter, Sarah, have you worked with any of these actors before?
No, I haven't.
I don't think so.
I love the fact you're thinking now for the first time.
I'm thinking for the first time ever. I don't think so.
Yeah, so that's fairly, that's...
Pretty unusual, you're right. Yeah.
Especially because Mamma Mia has been done. The rights were released, and everyone's doing Mamma Mia. Sarah just came from a Mamma. So you auditioned for us, and then after you auditioned for us, and before your first day of rehearsal, how many other productions did you audition for?
Probably like 5.
5 other productions of Mamma Mia. So everyone is, it's on, and I think that's one of the things that's so interesting about this show, is that it seems to be a product that right now people are really eager for. They're really eager to laugh, have a good time, look at some spandex. It's just, I think it's the time for that. So if there are any questions, we'd be happy to take any questions you might have. Yes.
I'm sorry. I know you haven't worked together before, but have any of you worked at our rep here in Little Rock before?
No.
New experience. How do you like it?
We love it. I hope to come back. Hint, hint.
You don't have to twist my arm. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you experience a sense of loss at the end of the show and the dissolution of your community, or is this just another job?
I don't think it's.
Great question.
Yeah, it is a really great question. I think it depends on the production, and it depends on the experience, not just with the theatre, but also with the audience,
And the actors.
and the actors and your collaborators. I mean, I once had an actor tell me that doing the last show of a run was a bit like standing underneath a big tree in the fall, and all the leaves slowly fell down one by one as you went through the show, all the notes and all the words and all the steps and the dances, until you were left with nothing but a skeleton above you. And I always thought that was rather depressing and didn't agree with him at all. I mean, I always like to look forward, and I think that, I think that, the shows that we do live on in people's memories, and the joy that we receive from the audience and that we gain ourselves, and the experience that we gain ourselves in order to take to our next work is always, worth its while. So I never feel sort of depressed about it. I'm always looking forward to the next job, and hopefully to collaborating with the people who I've enjoyed working on this job with too.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I feel like being in New York and auditioning a lot, like we audition, I don't know, hundreds of times a year. But I never, for me at least, I don't go to auditions that I don't really want to do. Like if it's a job I don't want, I don't go. Because I don't think it's worth it to waste anybody's time, whether it's theirs or yours or whoever's. So every job that I come into, it's something that I really want to do, and I'm happy to be there. So it's just a big bonus when you connect with your cast. And there's some shows that the final song is sad. It's a goodbye, like Wicked, or other shows like that where there's a song at the end that's sad and people are saying goodbye to each other. So those aren't easy to do the last day if you connect with your people. So no spoilers, but you know, it's not always easy to leave casts. But we all, like most of us live in New York, so that's a big bonus. It's like, okay, cool, I'll see you across the river or whatever.
It's also, oddly enough, it's quite a small community, and you end up bumping into each other, you know, sooner or later, whether it's on the next job or 10 years' time. So you never...
Or at another audition. Right?
Or at another audition. Usually you're just standing outside a room waiting to go in. You go, oh, hi, Erin, how are you doing? Oh, my gosh, we haven't seen each other for, 5 years. Where have you been? What have you done? So, and I think that, that's part of our skill set as well, is being able to connect with each other, being emotionally open, and also being forward-looking and optimistic, because you have to be in our industry. I mean, you can't look at every so-called failure as an end stop. You always have to look forward. And I think as with the longevity, as you get older and more experienced, that's one of the things you learn, is that you have to keep on looking forward and never look back.
I don't know if you feel this way, Joe, as a director, but I know I get depressed after opening night, because this has lived in my mind for so long, and all the months of planning with this set designer and the costume designer, and working on marketing and working on all, and then you get in the rehearsal and it's very exciting. You're working with fantastic cast members, and you're in the driver's seat and you're trying to pull everyone together, and then it's opening night and suddenly you are just not necessary anymore. Because really what happens after opening night, the show, you turn over to the stage manager. And it's not quite as bad because I live here and I will come in and I will take notes during the course of the run. So it's not quite as bad, but I get sad. Do you get sad after opening?
Yes, after every show, whether I'm in it or directing or choreographing it, I always feel sad when I leave. I mean, I'm going to leave them all on Friday and probably never see most of them again. Yeah, so I'm going to leave on Saturday morning, and then I probably won't see most of these people again. So it is going to be sad, and I get sad. There's a different sadness as a director and choreographer, because you do leave the show after opening night. When I'm in Minneapolis and I can go back and see it, that helps, and it also is fun to hear about the show and to know that other people are enjoying it after you're gone. And so when I hear about this, I always read the rehearsal reports. The stage manager sends them to hear what happened, and it's fun to read those. When I'm in a show, I get even more connected to it, and when it's over, it's really, really difficult, especially if it's a show that I created from the ground up, because that means 3 years of thinking about it and obsessing about it and writing it and all that sort of thing. So, and I will also miss my host who asked that question, Becky Wheeler, and her dogs and her husband, Gary.
Thank you. Thanks to you guys for coming to our town. You've done a real good sell, I might say, for the production. Not to make you overthink things, but I'm not real familiar with the production. So how many ABBA songs are included?
It's in the neighborhood of 24.
Yeah, it's around 24, I think, because I have the album and I listen to it forever. 16 that need choreographic attention, and about 24 altogether, I think.
Quite a few. Lots of music.
Two of you work together at the Guthrie. How does our rep compare to the Guthrie?
Right. In some ways they're so similar, in other ways very different. I remember when I first moved to Minneapolis, St. Paul, I worked for a small theater company in New York City, smaller than the Rep, and moved to the Guthrie. And I remember thinking, this is such a corporate machine. It was a $10 million budget then. And by the time I left, it was a $27 million a year budget. It's a huge operation. And there are pluses to that, and there are definitely minuses to that. Because getting anything done at the Guthrie would be like turning the Queen Mary around. I mean, it's huge. And there are things, that, as I said, that are wonderful about it. You have, you have complete departments of our props department at the Guthrie, their props department at the Guthrie, maybe 12 people. We have 2. But the great thing about the Rep is the work on stage. Every single production I've seen at the Rep could be done at the Guthrie. I mean, the quality is that good. I think the quality is remarkable. And even more remarkable when you look at really the resources the Rep has. We are very blessed in this town to have support, and we are so deeply grateful for it. We have a wonderful board of directors. We have some wonderful philanthropists in this town that support us. And our staff is amazing. There are 3 people in the scene shop, one of which, our principal designer, is also our technical director. So we have people who really work hard and make it happen. There are things that there are things that I miss, of course, but no situation is ever going to be perfect. For me, the most important thing about a theater is what is on that stage. What is the quality of work on that stage? And the reason I came here was because the quality of the work on stage is so good. For me, and that keeps me coming to work every day, is the work on the stage.
I mean, I would say that the stage itself, and I don't know whether you guys experienced this for the first time, but it's a beautiful stage to play from. I mean, it's wide. You really feel connected with everybody. I'm constantly surprised when I'm told there's 350 seats.
377.
377. It feels like there's 600 or 800 people out there. The space is just it's beautifully intimate at the same time grand. And I really like the theatre. It's a beautiful theatre.
I agree. I think kudos to the designers and artistic leadership. In past years, the two balconies are great. The 2 mezzanines are great because it brings the audience in closer, and it allows a flexibility in terms of seating capacity. There are always things like the stage is pretty shallow. I wish we had another 6 feet. And there's not a lot of wing space, stage left, and I wish we had more fly space. But I think nothing's ever going to be perfect. And I think the really important thing, which is the relationship between an audience and the actor, that's absolutely right in that space.
When we come to the show, it appears to be perfect. But I know that there's a whole bunch of work that goes on from the time the curtain goes down on one show and when it comes up again the next night. And I know that if anything goes wrong or whatever, I don't know what the notes are called, but the stage manager has all the notes. So talk a little bit about how much has to happen. I mean, how often do you launder the costumes kind of stuff between when or how many costumes?
Well, it depends on the costume piece. But some are laundered every performance. It really depends on what shape you're in. And sometimes, because it's live, there are some things we'll never, ever be able to control as much as I like to. For example, there are some moments that when the fog works in the show, it's fantastic and it creates such a beautiful picture. But that has to do with air currents, and air currents are sort of mysterious. So we're trying to figure out, can we turn off the air conditioner for 20 minutes at this certain moment so that the fog will play that scene well and the audience won't bake. It's those types of things that we're trying to figure out. And so there are notes every day but we could probably note the show. Every performance could be noted in some way. But a note means so things that could be improved upon. So we'll say, the actor was out of his or her light. And what that means is some lights will be set, and then the actor needs to know that at that moment they need to walk into the light but at any given performance, the actor may misjudge and be a foot out of their light. And so you'll note them. You'll say, Simon, you were this way, or Sally, you were over this way, or whatever it is.
It's like kind of like slight little adjustments to kind of keep the show on point that we receive as actors, and also the rest of the creative team and people who are helping to make the show run. It's just kind of keeping everybody in tip-top shape, if you will.
Right.
Right? You know, slight adjustments.
Right, and exactly. And so if I guest director, like Gil McCauley was the last production, he leaves the day after opening. So the stage manager, which is, I think, the most underrated role in the theater. Stage manager is huge, and we have a great stage manager. So she has to take notes on the show, every single performance, because the director, usually isn't around. So she'll take notes on every performance and give them to actors to say, oh, you were out of your light in that, or you paraphrased a line, you didn't give us the correct line reading.
That's what I was talking about when I say I get to read the reports, because they send them, and I get to see what has happened, so it keeps me connected in some way. And then they'll also say something broke, it needs to be fixed. That will happen between shows. They'll talk about how the audience reacted to different things. You'll see what they liked and what they didn't like, so they include a lot of stuff in those reports.
So thank you so much for joining us. Audiences are loving the show. Tell your friends. Word of mouth is the best marketing tool we've got, and audiences are loving it. So I suggest that you tell your friends to get tickets soon, because I think it's going to sell really, really well. Thank you very much.